Quality of life mods sounds pretty boring. It's not the sort of thing that inspires people to click a video. So I'm going to call them something different. I'm going to call them mods that once you've tried, you could never go back because you'd pull your hair out and smash your face into the keyboard in frustration if you ever did. I think that works a little better.
And that song ain't so very far from wrong.
Fallout 4 received a lot of criticism, much of it well deserved. However, there was one thing about Fallout 4 that people did generally quite like and see as an improvement, and that was the looting mechanic. Whenever you looked at a container, you got a little pop-up menu that showed you what was inside the container and allowed you to take it without opening the container up, freezing time, filling the screen, you know, the usual sort of looting mechanic that we were accustomed to in, say, Fallout New Vegas. And it definitely helped speed things up. Let's face it, looting is a big part of Fallout New Vegas and all the Fallout games, and indeed most RPGs. So it should be no surprise whatsoever that the modding community stepped up and said, yes, we need this in Fallout New Vegas, and produced a mod that did that. Well, actually, they produced two. The most popular is Loot Menu for FNV, and indeed this is the mod I used for quite some time. It's rock solid. It does exactly what I wanted it to do. It pretty much mimics the Fallout 4 loot system. But there is also Just Loot Menu, and this is the mod I'm going to show you in this video for two reasons. The first reason is it has one little addition that I rather like, and that is it shows you your current weight when you loot things, so you can decide which things to loot and which to not loot based upon, you know, whether or not you're about to grind to a halt. That is a nice little touch. The second reason is something I'm going to tell you in a little while. You'll understand why when we get to that point. I will say, if you're somebody who wants to play the game with a controller, you are almost certainly going to want Loot Menu for FNV instead, because Just Loot Menu does not have controller support, whereas Loot Menu for FNV does. I tried it out, it works fine, even for someone like me who is absolutely terrible at using controllers. So let's install Just Loot Menu, and by this point you should be reasonably proficient at this. You've gone to the page, you've read the text here, you've checked the requirements and noticed it needs GIP, LNNVSE and UIO. You've made sure you've got those installed, and you've gone to the file section and you've noticed there are two files, or at least there are at the time of making this video, both of them under the main files. One, Just Loot Menu, and two, container animations. The container animations is not actually a required file. It is in fact optional. Not totally sure why it's here. I think it's because the mod author really likes these animations. But for now, we're going to just download Just Loot Menu. Once the file's downloaded, you install as usual, you enable as usual, and then guess what? As usual, you go in game and check it out. Once in game, go to the mod configuration menu. You're really probably sick of hearing that by now, but you know, go along to the loot menu and you've got all of these options. There are actually quite a lot of options. The things you're really going to need to do are set the first key. That is the key that will be used to take items. Most of you can probably leave the defaults. I need to change it because I customize my keys. And the second key, that's the key that actually opens the container the normal way. Again, most of you, if you've played Fallout 4, could leave things as default and it will feel very familiar. Then go to a container and check it out. There you go. As you can see, weight 108 out of 200. I can take a single item, or I can open and, you know, take as normal. You may have noticed that the font is a little large for the UI that I have. Do not worry. Go back to the mod configuration. Go to just mods, loot menu, and you can find the used font and change it. I'm actually just going to change it to the smallest one because it seems to match Darnified. I'm also going to adjust the text, but I'll show you why before I do. Can you see the text is a little low in the highlighted area? You can change that just by going to text adjustment. I've actually found that 0 text adjustment is required for Darnified. And now everything, I'm breaking things, everything looks just fine. Now, you don't have to have the weight show if you don't want. You can go to the mod configuration and either turn it off or set it to only appear when you are close to being over encumbered. So if I do that, it's no longer visible because I've got loads of carry capacity and it will start to show when I'm carrying too much. And, you know, basically that's it. It's doing exactly what I want it to do. It's not a very difficult mod to install or to set up. Now, if you're wondering what the container animations file does, I'll show you quickly. I'm going to open this toolbox the old-fashioned way. Did you notice the little smooth animation of the lid opening? Let me do that again. It smoothly opens. It's not a big deal, but it does give a feeling of realism. Now watch as I take the scrap electronics using the new loot mechanic. Did you see how it opened very, very sharply? Let me do it again with the plunger. There's no smooth animation. Well, I'm sure you've guessed by now what the container animations file does is it just makes that animation smoother and a little more pleasant. So let's install that now. Again, back to the file section of the page, click download with your mod manager, install and enable, and if you don't have anything conflicting with it, we can just go into game. Now I'm going to take the scrap electronics, and you can see that the lid opens a little smoother. It's not a big deal, but it's a little more pleasant and a little more consistent with the main way of looting things. You probably noticed that I said if the container animations don't conflict with anything, try it out in game, and that is because it will conflict with some mods, including something like Poco Bueno Texture Pack. If I enable that right now, you will see there is a conflict. If I go to just loot menu container animations, click on the red lightning icon, there are 3 files. The fire hose reel and the toolbox and the locker. It's only 3 of the containers, but I'm going to have to decide who should win this conflict. Now, Vortex is suggesting you load this after Poco Bueno. And what that will do is it will replace the models with the new ones you've just installed, and you will get the smooth animations. I did check in game and I still got the Poco Bueno textures, so that's the most important thing, and I couldn't see any difference, so that is probably how I would recommend setting this up. But I can't guarantee there's not some small mesh fix for Poco Bueno that I just did not notice, so there may be some odd visual thing somewhere and I'm just not, you know, good enough at spotting these things. I can tell you it probably won't have any negative effect on your game. If, however, you absolutely want the meshes that came with whatever mod is conflicting, load before. Just note, if you do that, those containers listed, these containers here, will have the old, very snappy animations. It really is going to come down to which is more important to you. Another mod that might make your life a little easier is Just Weapon Wheel. And yes, it is spelt Hweel, so I suppose it's Just Weapon Wheel. However, regardless of how you say it, this is a mod that adds something that's going to be familiar to a lot of FPS gamers, a user interface wheel popping up when you press a key, allowing you to select a weapon or item. And this mod works in addition to the hotkeys that you've got normally, so you could assign 8 items to your hotkeys and then another 8 items to your weapon wheel. So, you know, it gives you even more options to select things without having to go to your Pip-Boy. But it's going to be easier to show you once we've got it installed, so let's do that now. Going along to the mod page as usual, checking the description and looking at the requirements. Very important this time because there is a requirement for something called Johnny Guitar NVSE. And no, that mod has absolutely nothing to do with guitars or Johnny. If you open that page up, you will actually see, well, to be honest with you, even the description is not particularly obvious if you glance at it. However, this is kind of like GIP-LN in that it extends NVSE and adds a bunch of functions for mod authors to use. So you're going to need this mod. Go to the file section and download with Mod Manager. And whilst we're there, we'll go back to Just Weapon Hweel, go to the file section there, and also download that file. Once they've downloaded, install Johnny Guitar NVSE first. My apologies for laughing a little. And then install the Just Weapon Hweel. There should be no conflicts after you enable both of them. So the default key for the weapon wheel is H, and if I press and hold it, it will just pop up. It's currently pretty empty, although I can use it to enable the light from my Pip-Boy just by clicking with the mouse, or even open my Pip-Boy if I don't have a hotkey set for that. Once I'm in the Pip-Boy, I can just go to a weapon, once again press the H key and hold it, and then move to any of the slots, click with the mouse, and that is now assigned to my 9mm pistol. And I can do the same with pretty much everything. I'll put the binoculars there. I'll change some of my outfits maybe. A couple of outfits sorted out. Drugs, and pretty much whatever you want. You can set these items at will. Once I leave the Pip-Boy, I then press the wheel key again, and now if I select the sturdy caravan shotgun, I now have that in my hands. Let's press it again and switch to the binoculars, and there we have the binoculars. And it's really that simple. I mean, you know, you can actually see certain statistics on the wheel, which is very useful. And if you want, you can configure it as normal in the mod configuration menu. Notice we didn't go straight in there this time. I thought it'd be a little bit different and use the default key. Mixing it up. Excitement galore here. Change the key now to something easier for me. And, you know, you can change a lot of other settings. I'll leave that for you to explore. But it really is that simple. And I still have the option to hotkey things as I did before. So if I go back to the weapons, I can hotkey, say, those 2 items. And that still works. I don't need to use the wheel. It's just another way that I can access my inventory quickly without constantly going in and out of the Pip-Boy. Now at this point, if you've been following along, you may have between 2 and 5 of the Just mods installed. And assuming you've been diligently reading the pages as I told you to, you will have noticed there was a link to something called Just Mods Assorted down below. And you may be thinking, but Gopher, should I not install that mod if I'm using more than one of the Just mods? It is a collection of all of them after all. And the answer is yes, actually, you probably should. And there's a pretty good reason for that. You see, if you go along to the plugins section of Vortex or whichever mod manager you are using and look for any of the Just Mod ESP files, you'll see quite a few. Just Weapon Wheel, Just Loot Menu, Just Bullet Time, Just Dynamic Crosshair, and Just Vanilla Sprint. I have 5 ESPs. And I can tell you there is a limit to the number of ESPs the game will load, so reducing this number is always a good thing. And if you can get one mod that combines all of these into one ESP, that is going to help. And don't worry if you're not using some of these mods and you don't want to, because you can disable them in the MCM. So we're going to install this mod now and replace the 5 mods I currently have installed. No big surprise, the requirements are the combined requirements of all of the other mods. I've already met all of the requirements, so I just go along to Files and go to the main Just Mods Assorted file and click Mod Manager Download. And before I install it, I'm going to just disable Just Bullet Time, Just Dynamic Crosshair, Just Loop Menu, the container animations as well, and Just Vanilla Sprint. Oh, and Just Weapon Wheel. Obviously, I'm then going to install Just Mods Assorted and Enable. Now, this combined mod does come with the container animations from Just Loop Menu. So if you have Poco Bueno or something else that conflicts with it, you will need to sort that conflict out the usual way. Red lightning icon, and again I'm going to load after Poco Bueno. As I said, I don't think there are any downsides to that. I've not noticed any, and I do like the smooth animations. And now when I go to the mod configuration menu and click on Just Mods, I will see all of the mods that have been installed, and I can disable the ones I don't want. So for example, Hit Marker, this is a mod that gives a sort of visual feedback when you strike an enemy. Hit Indicator, this will give you some idea from which direction you're being shot. These are very common in FPS games. Visual Objectives, that's actually quite a nice mod, but I've not covered it yet, so I'm going to disable that. Same with Hold Breath, this is probably a mod I would use. I just want to leave the 5 that I had, and then of course I go into, say, the loot menu option and set everything up as I need it. And pretty much it's exactly the same as the individual mods when it comes to changing the settings. So, you know, just go in, select what you need, and you're pretty much done. And now, if you check the plugin section of Vortex, you will see only one ESP for the Just Mods. So we've reduced the number of ESPs by 4, which, as I've mentioned, is actually a good idea. The only other thing I'd say about this mod is it was a bit of a missed opportunity, really, wasn't it? Because instead of Just Mods Assorted, you could have had Just Assorted Mods. And then it would have been Jam. And everyone likes Jam. Well, not everyone, but, you know. For some members of the PC Master race, quality of life includes things like an FOV slider, which is unfortunate because the vanilla game has no such thing. Luckily, the modding community has you covered, and if you go along to the mod configuration menu with the FOV slider mod installed, you can change the FOV. In fact, you can change the FOV and related settings for a number of situations. But let's start with the world field of view. You can change it all the way up to 160, which is kind of large. Let's go with something like 120 and go for an old Quake 2 flashback feel here. It's a little large, isn't it? I mean, we're all for going large, but that might be a little on the large side. So let's drop it back down to 90. And there you go. It's pretty much as simple as that. But as I mentioned, it will also allow you to change the FOV in some other situations, or even certain other settings. For example, when you go into iron sights, basically the view does get smaller. It zooms in. You can change how much it zooms in or how fast it zooms in, which is really nice. If you're the sort of person who really likes snappy zoom, you can change the zoom time, crank it right down, and you get this real snappy feel. Now, you know, the actual animation for the iron sights is the same speed, but your zoom is really snappy. As I said, you can also change things like Pip-Boy field of view. Let's change that. Let's crank that up to 80 and open the Pip-Boy. And there you go. It's like your arm is a long way away from your face. Maybe you've been rummaging through something unpleasant and don't want to get your hand too close to your face. Or the opposite. You can take it all the way... Where on earth was it? There it was. Getting lost. All the way down to, I believe, 30. And essentially hide from the world, basically, behind your Pip-Boy. And then there is, in my opinion, one of the most essential mods if you are using companions, and that mod is the Jip Companions Command and Control mod. This mod gives you a very easy to use, efficient way of commanding your companions to do pretty much everything without having to go through the clumsy companion wheel. You can do everything on the fly. It really is. It feels so natural. If you've ever played a game like Mass Effect and you're used to being able to tell your companions where to go just at the press of a button, it's kind of like that, only it has so many options. It's so customizable. It also has an on-screen UI element for each companion so you can see how healthy they are. And it has hotkeys so you can just tell them all to wait and then follow without really having to, you know, try hard. It's so convenient. This is especially essential if you're playing the game on hardcore mode where companions can die and you're using mods that make the game a lot tougher. You know, you're going to want to be able to just tell your companions to hang back a little bit or set them up in good positions so that they don't get ambushed, or in your line of fire if you're lobbing grenades and things. Just overall, it makes playing with companions so easy and so pleasant. I cannot recommend this mod enough.
If you would like me to die very rapidly, this is clearly the best tactical choice.
Now, I almost forgot the next mod, the Jip Improved Recipe Menu, because it fixes, well, such a small thing that you sort of forget that you've got a mod making it better. It's a very, very typical problem with quality of life mods. They remove an irritation and after a while you forget that irritation was ever there. But sometimes it's good to remind yourself. You know how when you go to a workbench and you try to do something, well, when you do something, when you make a recipe and then, you select it and then change the recipe. Okay, so you select it and then you try and go around without clicking on anything, and then you hit accept and you choose how many you want and you click OK, and then it drops you out of the bench. Same is true for the reloading bench. But with Jip's improved recipe menu installed, I can just select the recipe I want, and it now allows me to make as many as I can. It doesn't limit you in any way. I choose how many I want to make, and I click OK, and it makes them. It's done, and it's not closed the bench. If I want to make some of these, let's make lots of them, I can. And I can just make whatever I want to make, and then when I'm finished, exit. Same is true for the reloading bench. This is really useful for my character because my character spends a lot of time making custom ammo. So being able to break things down and then make new ammo is just, it's essential. And it's essential because without it, it drives me nuts. And that, I think, is the key to why quality of life mods are so important. As I started the video by stating, quality of life is not a strong enough term for them. They're mods that stop you wanting to scream in rage. Now, I'm not going to show you how to install the last 3 mods because it really is very simple. It's the process you've been doing over and over, and there are no special considerations for any of those mods. What I am going to do is suggest that before you rush off and find every single quality of life mod you can find and install it, you go back to lStewieAl's tweaks and check out some of the other features that mod has. I'm sure you remember this is one of the mods we installed in the first video for its engine tweaks. However, this mod comes with a lot more potential because it has a lot of tweaks for quality of life improvements. In fact, if you go to the description tab on the Nexus page and scroll down, you will see a lot of highlighted options, green highlighted options. These are all quality of life options that you can set in the ini file. For example, you could set it to open your Pip-Boy to the inventory by default, because for many people that is the most common reason they visit the Pip-Boy. Or you could set a hotkey to go straight to the map in the Pip-Boy. Perhaps you want to toggle the scope night vision on and off with the Pip-Boy light key. And there are even options for a more immersive, realistic experience rather than quality of life tweaks. For example, hide unspoken NPC names. You don't actually get to see the name of the NPC until you've spoken to them. And in fact, if you go through the full list of options, you may find there are a lot of things you can do without installing a new mod. And of course, that will keep the number of ESPs down. And as I've mentioned before, that is a good thing. But how do you enable these features? Well, you're going to start in your Fallout New Vegas game folder, and you're going to go to Data, NVSE, Plugins, and you're looking for NVSE_Stewie_tweaks.ini, and you'll need to open that in either Notepad or I'm going to open it with Notepad++. You'll also need StewieTweaks readme.txt open as well. This README will basically tell you all of the features it has and which setting controls it. Now, I'm not expecting you to read the entire thing, but I'm going to, for example, set my Pip-Boy to open automatically to the inventory. And the way I'm going to find the variable, the setting I need, is I'm going to press Control F to find, and then I'm going to find, I'm going to guess it's something like open Pip-Boy without spaces usually. B, allow open Pip-Boy during camera shake. No, that's not the one. Open Pip-Boy to inventory by default. That sounds hopeful. Makes the Pip-Boy always open to the inventory page when the menu mode key is pressed. Yes, this is what I want. B, open Pip-Boy to inventory by default. This is the setting name. The B indicates it's a Boolean, which means it's going to be true or false, or 0 and 1. I'm going to copy this, then I'm going to go to the StewieTweaks.ini file, Control F again, and paste that into there and find this setting. There it is. Open the Pip-Boy to the inventory tab when using the Pip-Boy key. As you can see, I could probably have searched for this in the main file. It's set to 0. If I change it to 1 and then press Control S or go up here and save, that is now set. When I next open the Pip-Boy, it will open to the inventory tab. I'm also going to set a hotkey that takes me straight to the map on my Pip-Boy. That's something I want to do fairly often. So now I'm going to Control F again, and I'm going to type in hotkey and see where this leads me. And I'm going to find it. Hotkeys. That is probably what I need. Right. So at the top here it says C, and then it gives you a link. This is going to be very, very useful. Copy that, and then I'm going to go down and find, there we go, open map key. Now, this is not a Boolean. The I indicates it's an integer. What it's looking for here is a number that will tell us which key to press. So I'm going to go to my browser, and I'm going to copy this link that gives me a list of the scan codes. And I'm going to set M as the key, and the number is 50. So I'm going to go back here, and I'm going to change this to 50. This now makes the M key open the map. Control S, or go to File and Save if you like. And now I'm going to go and check it out in game. Okay, going to open the Pip-Boy, and it's open to my inventory. Now, that could just be luck, so I'm going to change it to my specials. I'm going to close the Pip-Boy. I'm going to reopen it. And it's back to the inventory, as I hoped. I'm also going to press the M key. Straight to the map. So there you go. I have managed to tweak the game, got a few quality of life improvements without actually adding any more mods. Obviously there are a lot more settings for you to try out. I would suggest don't set them all at once. You probably want to try one or two and see what happens. Make sure everything is okay, the same way as you would do if you were installing mods. However, when you're installing mods for quality of life improvements or even perhaps new gameplay mechanics, you might want to check this list and just see if you already have such an option, and all you need to do is change one setting. Because again, I'm going to reiterate, keeping down the number of ESPs is something you probably want to start getting in the habit of. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is all we have time for today. But I hope you could join me for the next video, and I look forward to seeing you there if you do. But until then, remember, as always, have fun.
I got spurs that jingle, jangle, jingle.